What distinguishes a good language learner from a mediocre language learner? How is it that students in the same class with the same teacher, using the same materials, having equal learning opportunities, some students can be very successful, whereas the others will achieve mediocre results or sometimes fail to achieve good results? In this video, I am going to show you some of the good qualities of a good language learner. And the good thing about these qualities is that you can develop these qualities to help you achieve better results than having mediocre results. So let's begin right away. Quality number one is he or she is a willing and accurate guesser. What do I mean by willing and accurate guesser? It means when somebody is speaking to you, when you are listening to somebody, if they say a word that you don't know, or while you're reading articles or listening to, for example, TED Talks, if you run into a word that you don't know what it means, you simply continue listening. You have to guess the meaning. You don't pause and go to Turing, Google Translate to check the meanings. You guess the meanings. So the first step to develop this skill or this quality is you must be willing to guess. Many students are not willing to guess. They quickly ask, what's the meaning of? They quickly check Turing or Google Translate or any other translating applications. So the first thing is you're willing. Develop the willingness. The other one is you have to guess accurately, because you may be willing to guess, but you may guess and it's not the correct meaning, so you will end up learning the wrong word. So what I would advise you to do, if, for example, you're speaking to somebody and they use a word that you don't know what it means, you could say, I'm sorry, does this word mean this? So here you're trying to guess, but then ask the other person, does this mean this? They will say, yes, it does. Or they will say, no, it actually means this. This way you haven't used Turing right away. Why is this very important? This is very important because, for example, you can use Turing and Google Translate or any other translating apps because you have the internet. Your phone is with you all the time. But what if your phone battery dies? What if you're going for an exam like IELTS or TOEFL and you simply cannot use Turing or Google Translate to look at the words, to maybe while you're doing your reading section, you cannot stop and check the translator, which means you will get stuck. So before you use Google Translate and all the other translators, try to guess. So that's the first quality that you should work on developing if you want to really achieve better results in your language learning process. Second quality is having a strong drive to communicate. What do I mean by this? I'll give you examples. There are times when I'm doing speaking classes with some students, and for example, I ask a basic question. For example, what did you do this weekend? And they say, nothing. They don't say anything else. But there are some students who say, nothing. I didn't want to do anything. I just stayed at home and watched some movies, and I actually watched a very interesting movie. So if you look at the second example or the second student, they are speaking a lot. They are adding a lot of information, which means they're going to make so many mistakes. If they're not very fluent, they will make so many mistakes, and while they make mistakes, there is a chance to correct the mistakes. But if you simply say nothing, well, that's one word. It cannot be corrected. So as a language learner, you may not be a very talkative person, but when you're learning a language, try to speak as much as possible. Sometimes, most especially in the beginnings, these what you say might not be connected or something like that. Just don't worry about that. Keep speaking, just continue to speak. And after some time, things will come together, because the more you speak, the more you're going to get corrected and the more confidence you will develop. But if you don't speak, there is no chance for improvement. So the other quality to develop is to communicate or to answer in details. If you don't know how to answer in details, I will link a video below I made recently about how to answer in details. So if your problem is answering in short answers, short lines, then I would recommend you check out that video. Or if you're going for a IELTS speaking exam or TOEFL, you should check out that video, because it gives you a step-by-step on how to add details to your answers. Let's look at the next quality. The third quality of a very good language learner or a successful language learner is he or she is uninhibited and willing to make mistakes. Now, as kids, we don't mind about being perfect, and we simply say things, do things, and this is why kids can quickly learn how to swim. I personally can't swim because I'm scared of drowning. So as adults, we have things that we're scared of, for example, scared of making mistakes or scared of not being very perfect. And this starts developing when we are becoming teenagers, because we want to be perfect, we want to be accepted by everyone. But when you're learning a language, you should forget the teenage part of yourself and run back to the times when you are a kid, which means don't be afraid of making mistakes. Make a lot of mistakes. Actually, I prefer a student who makes mistakes and makes mistakes every single time, rather than one who has to wait until they're perfect to speak. And this means they will never get to the perfect level. I did the same mistake when I was learning Turkish. I wanted to wait until I was perfect to speak, and it was a horrible mistake. So I would suggest you make mistakes, many of them. If today you make 10 mistakes and the teacher corrects 10 of them, which means tomorrow you will make probably less than that. So make as many mistakes as possible if you want to get double the results of your language learning process. The other quality of a very good language learner is he or she focuses on form by looking at patterns and using analysis. This is very essential. For example, when you're learning grammar, you have to look at the patterns in everything. Or for example, when you listen to somebody, look at the patterns, the way they introduce ideas, the way they develop ideas, and the way they conclude their ideas. This is one of the things I strongly advise or teach or focus on when teaching students how to speak, is you have to understand the patterns of speaking. When people are speaking, I will briefly explain this. When people are speaking, they generally mention an idea, first of all, mention an idea, they develop the idea, in most cases maybe give an answer, give an example or give a reason. They try to explain the idea, and then they give supporting examples to throw more light onto this idea, and then they give a conclusion. In most cases, when explaining, they could compare the ideas or whatever they're talking about. I will make a video explaining this in detail, but if you understand the pattern in which people speak, in which the English language presents ideas, for example, if you're doing IELTS reading, if you understand that maybe the first line is usually the general idea, the second line is an explanation, the third line usually an example, or these two might be interchanged, and the last sentence is a conclusion which draws back to the main idea. It means if you understand the pattern in the first time, then you will also begin using the same pattern rather than run around with your ideas. So the other, you can also develop this skill. Notice the pattern, analyze it, because after you've understood it, you can use it. The other quality of a very good language learner is that he or she takes advantage of all practice opportunities. Now, many times, for example, maybe you're a student or you work at an international company, or there is simply a foreigner in your neighborhood. In most cases, many people simply look at the foreigner from a distance. They want to speak to them, but they don't because of different reasons. But if you want to quickly improve your language learning process, try to communicate with the foreigner. Try to communicate with the people around you if they speak English. It may not be their first language, probably it's also their second language, but by speaking, because everybody knows different things, so by speaking to somebody else, it helps you practice, first of all, and after that you can learn something or different things from the person you're speaking with. The person doesn't have to be a native speaker. They just have to have some knowledge on the language. When I was learning Turkish, I used to see some African friends of mine speak to each other in Turkish, and I would think, that's crazy, why you guys speak to each other in Turkish? But that wasn't crazy. It was a good way to have extra practice rather than wait for a time that you will meet a Turkish person and speak to them. Probably you may be nervous that they won't understand, because that was my biggest problem. I was scared of talking to Turks because I thought they wouldn't understand me. But then instead of practicing with fellow African friends that were trying to learn the language, that could speak better than me, I just didn't. So which means I didn't learn anything. So please don't make the same mistake. Even if somebody is not a native speaker, speak to them, because you will learn a thing or two. And besides that, you'll practice the knowledge that you already know. So it's a win-win situation for the two of you. The other way to quickly or to double the results of your language learning process is to monitor your own speech or the speech of the other people that you speak to. How is this helpful? If you pay attention to how you speak, then it gives you an opportunity to understand what's missing. And after you've noticed what's missing, then you can go and try to learn it. And if you pay attention to the other person that you're speaking to, if you pay attention to their speech, then it helps you to pick things from their speech that you don't know, or it helps you to develop confidence, because probably you're using the same sentence structures, and if the other person is using the same sentence structures and they're in a higher level than you are, then it gives you some sort of confidence. So pay attention to how you speak. Learn what's missing and try to develop that. And lastly, this is in connection with the tip I just gave. You have to pay attention to meaning. For example, there are students who usually ask, you say the word, what does that mean? That's a very good thing, because you hear a word and quickly grab it. But to grab the word, you must pay attention. So the tip I gave before, pay attention. And then when you hear something that you don't know, don't be afraid to ask, what's the meaning of this? Stop the person speaking. And the first tip I gave you was to not quickly check on Turing. So when you stop the person speaking, quickly figure out what this word might mean. And then you could ask them, you used this word. Is it the same meaning with this? So you find a synonym. When is it used? Try to understand the word in detail. And then you will find out your guess was correct. So all these tips, it will take time to develop. You will not wake up one morning and when somebody speaks something, you simply guess what it means and you accurately guess what it means and you pay attention to the way you speak and everything. You will not. But next time when you're interacting with a language that you are trying to learn, try to be observant of these tips, and slowly by slowly you will improve your language effectively. This is one of the reasons I like to record myself speaking both in English and Turkish, because it gives me an opportunity to pay attention to my patterns. How do I speak? What's missing? What do I need to develop? This is both in English and Turkish. And I would advise you do the same. This is something you can do every day at home. Just grab your cell phone, sit and record yourself, and then find out what's missing, find out what you can't do. And after you've done this a number of times, you will have a lot better results than the ones you had before. Just don't sit around and wait for a chance to move abroad or to speak to a native speaker. Don't do that mistake. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. I hope these tips are going to help you improve your language learning process, and you're going to get double the results of the effort you put in, because we all want to see results. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Subscribe to my channel.